want to talk about some of them for just a minute. But before I get to the issues, I also want to talk about a bigger question, which is with the choice that all of us are going to have to make for purposes of this election. I mean, the question becomes whether you believe that the way that Washington, D.C. works today is actually working for America. I don't. I think we desperately need serious change, bold change, big change to bring about all the things that America needs. And I think there are some starting places. I think we have to be willing to take on the entrenched interests that exist in Washington to bring about the change that we need. For example, I have absolutely no doubt about why we don't have universal health care in America today. We don't have universal health care because of drug companies, insurance companies, and their lobbies. And we have to take those entrenched interests on and beat them in order to bring out the change that America needs. Now, I have said as a clear sign that my party, the Democratic Party, is the party of the people, not the party of Washington insiders. We should say from this day forward, we will never take another dime from the Washington lobbyists. No more. We're done with that. We're not going to be part of what they do. I know what they do. For example, the Medicare prescription drug bill that so many of our seniors are struggling with right now, that thing was written by drug company lobbyists. I was there. I know what happened. And our seniors are struggling every day. And the cost of prescription drugs are going up every day because those lobbyists got what they wanted. We can make it very clear that we're going to start reforming today. We don't have to wait for a law to pass. We don't have to wait for the next election. We can make it absolutely clear who we stand with and who we stand against. By saying no to this lobbyist money, we can make it absolutely clear that we're the party that's for change. And by the way, the ultimate answer here is not just not taking lobbyist money. The ultimate answer is to publicly finance our political campaigns in America and take the money out of politics. But I want to talk for a minute about why this matters. Because those people who stand between America and the change it needs are a huge obstacle to making America what it's capable of being. For example, I mentioned health care just a minute ago. Our health care system is dysfunctional. It doesn't work by any possible measure. We have 47 million people in this country without health care coverage. Health insurance premiums are up over 100% just over the last 5 or 6 years. But the real stories are the stories of human beings, not statistics. I'll tell you something I saw just a few weeks ago. I did a poverty tour. Many of you know I've been working very hard on this issue of poverty in America. But I did a poverty tour, and I started in the lower Ninth Ward, ended up in the Appalachian Mountains. And so I was in Western Virginia in the Appalachian Mountains, sitting with a group of people at a picnic table early in the morning. And this fellow was sitting near me. He was 51 years old. His name was James Lowe. He told me that he had been born with a cleft palate and he couldn't speak. It was completely fixable. But he didn't have health care, and therefore he couldn't pay to fix it. And finally, some good-hearted person came along and voluntarily did the work to fix his cleft palate. Here was the problem. They did it when he was 50 years old. He lived for 5 decades in America, not able to speak, because he didn't have the health care that he deserved. And he was all humble and noble and very, very kind about all that. He reminded me so much of the people that I grew up with here in South Carolina and in North Carolina. But the truth of the matter is I felt outraged because it is not okay that somebody like James Lowe lives in America, not able to speak because they have no health care, because the drug companies and insurance companies are running this country. When are we going to actually stand up to these people? When are we going to stand up for people like James Lowe who deserve a president who actually believes in them? That's what we're standing for. And there are clear things that we can do. Now, We're going to have presidential candidates coming through South Carolina. We're blessed. We have great presidential candidates in the Democratic Party. I have enormous affection and respect for the other candidates. But everyone who comes through, I was the first candidate to come out with a truly universal health care plan. Every candidate that comes through, you should ask them one question about health care. Does your proposal cover every man and woman in America? Because if it doesn't, first you should find yourself another candidate. But the second, you should ask them to explain to you what woman, what man, what child is not entitled to health care. Because I believe every one of us is worthy. Every one of us has equal value. There is no excuse for there being a single man or woman in America that doesn't have health care coverage. Now here's what I propose. That we cover everybody, required as a matter of law. That we cover the cracks in the health care system, which means we ban pre-existing conditions, mental health parity, mental health is exactly the same as physical health, preventive care, chronic care, long-term care, all covered, dental care, vision care, covered. You can take your health care with you wherever you go. If you get laid off, if you move, your health care goes with you. My health care plan, some people are going to claim that you can do universal health care for free. I don't believe it. I believe there's a cost associated with universal health care. My plan costs $90 to $120 billion a year, and I pay for it by getting rid of Bush's tax cuts for people who make over $200,000. We have the worst economic inequality we've had in this country since the Great Depression. We're becoming a country made up of a few rich people and everybody else. All you got to do is look at the Census Bureau's report like 2 days ago. The New York Times did an analysis. The bottom line is exactly what all of you already know. The richest Americans, the very wealthiest Americans, are getting wealthier. Everybody else is falling behind. Everybody else. George Bush has taken the age of globalization where there are clear winners and he's made them huge winners. The question is, what are we going to do for the rest of America? What are we going to do about millions of middle class families whose incomes aren't going up while the cost of everything goes up? I mean, gas, what you pay for college tuition, health insurance, everything you spend money on is going up, while income is not going up. At the same time, we have 37 million people in the richest nation on the planet who wake up every single day worried about feeding and clothing their children. This is not okay. And it says something about the character of America, what we're willing to do about it. And for those people who say to us, there's nothing you can do, oh yes there is. There's a lot that can be done. Some of the things are not very complicated. This is a moral issue for both low-income families and the middle class in this country. There are a whole group of things we can do. First, the Congress, after a decade, finally raised the minimum wage. It's going to $7.25 an hour. That's great. It's not enough. Minimum wage ought to be at least $9.50 an hour. It ought to be indexed to go up on its own. We ought to change the law and strengthen the right of unions to organize in the workplace so that the workers can collectively bargain, earn a decent wage, get health care covered, makes all the difference in the world in the lives of working Americans. Help people to save. This is what we're faced with. We have the worst savings rate in the industrialized world. And then we have people who say to me, why would anybody go to a payday or predatory lender and pay 300 or 400% interest? Here's why. If you're 2 days from payday and you don't have any money in the bank and your children have to eat, you'll do anything, right? And so the question is, what are we going to do? Here's what we ought to do. We ought to have a national predatory lending law that cracks down on these predators. We ought to make it absolutely clear. We're going to help people save. We ought to teach financial literacy. We ought to match what they're able to save. What about access to college? George Bush is taking billions of dollars out of the federal budget for kids to be able to go to college. This is insanity. We ought to make it easier for young people to go to college. Here's my idea. It's called College for Everyone. We say to every young person in America, graduate from high school, qualify to go to college, commit to work at least 10 hours a week your first year, we pay for your tuition and books. Very simple, very straightforward. We've actually done this. Elizabeth and I started this privately and raised the money privately in a section of eastern North Carolina, a low-income area. It's been incredibly successful. The reason is you don't give it to them. It won't hurt these young people to work. A lot of us worked when we were in school. But then they graduate from college and they don't have this crushing burden of debt that so many of our young people are faced with. We have to create more opportunity. And I just have to say a word about this, because this week is the second anniversary, about what's happened in New Orleans. You know, this is a national embarrassment. We don't need a surge in Baghdad. We need a surge in New Orleans. That's what we need. It is embarrassing how America has failed in New Orleans. And there is only one explanation for this. You can spend lots of time talking about bureaucrats and how the money's not getting where it needs. This is a complete failure of presidential leadership. That is the reason New Orleans is in the state it is. This president went to Jackson Square and gave a speech. What has he done? What has he done to get help to the people of New Orleans? What has he done to the people in the 9th Ward? We took 700 college kids who gave up their spring break, we being me, to New Orleans to work, rehabbing houses. I didn't see a government person the whole time I was there. If the President of the United States demanded action, there would be action. We have to make New Orleans secure. We have to help them rebuild their infrastructure. We have to help them jobs. How about if instead of hiring Halliburton to bring in people from outside of New Orleans, we hire the people of New Orleans to rebuild their own cities and pay them a decent family wage. And here's a radical idea. I call it Browning's Law. Suppose we have a law that says if you're going to head up a government agency, you have to actually be competent to do the job